from Egypt to Canaan. We cannot pretend to be able to fully examine the many profound lessons that are involved in the journey of the Israelites from Egypt to Canaan in one short video. But it's sufficient to notice that the journey of the Israelites to the earthly Canaan is a perfect type of the Christian's journey to the heavenly Canaan. The journey begins with God's manifesting supernatural power by terrible things in righteousness to utterly humble the Egyptians and glorify His name. The religion of Israel and even their God becomes very popular and even congenial to the carnal pride of the unregenerate heart. A God who humbles one's enemies and oppressors must definitely be a good God. Many Egyptians choose to become Jews. They are the people who are termed the mixed multitude and were an occasion of many rebellious feelings in the wilderness. His miraculous workings demonstrate right at the beginning of this journey that whatever happens in the wilderness, power and wisdom are never wanting with Israel's God. Whatever the vicissitudes of the wilderness wanderings, there is enough evidence on the side of faith. Far, however, from what these wandering pilgrims expected, a journey that might have taken 2 or 3 weeks ended up taking 40 years. God wanted Canaan in their hearts before Canaan was under their feet. Earthly Canaan was going to be a type of God's eternal kingdom upon the earth, and those only who somewhat qualified for it were to be admitted into it. The wanderings and trials of the wilderness were going to be the sieve by which to choose the true Israel. True to the eternal principles of His workings, He says, I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. That is Isaiah chapter 48 verse 10. True Christians are those that remain such even in the face of affliction. Paul says concerning this journey, now all these things happened unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. That is 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 11. Many religious belief systems are based on a God who delivers people from Egypt to Canaan, with numberless temporal blessings in between. With many, these temporal blessings are the measure of spiritual prosperity. Like Israel of old, their faith does not outlive mighty demonstrations of divine power, and the rebuke comes to them as to the Jews. Except ye see signs and wonders, ye will not believe. That is John chapter 4 verse 48. It takes some faith to believe on until something supernatural happens. But it takes genuine saving faith, tried as gold in the fire, to believe on even if nothing visible happens. True faith trusts God. But when you trust in what God must do before you believe Him, then you trust yourself more than God. A Christian should trust God enough to submit his will, even if it crosses his own purposes. Even if they don't see signs and wonders, they will still believe. Like the journey in the wilderness, the leader in the pilgrim's journey is more important than the path. God did not always choose the path that the Israelites thought best, but there was always enough reason to believe Him. The materialistic religion of many religionists does not merely stop at a desire to use God for personal temporal gain. It goes beyond that. To many, religion is simply a means of escape from hell and a license to enter heaven. Many professed Christians do not really love God for whom He is. They simply love what God has promised to offer, namely, an escape from hell and an entry into heaven. They don't choose His company here, but expect to live with Him forever. They will seek to do the least possible to gain their point. To them, God and religion are a necessary burden that have to be endured to escape hell and enter heaven. The false doctrine of a forever burning hell makes them to especially fear it and to secretly hate God. Such a God they must circumvent if they can, and even enter heaven in spite of Himself. It is why many religionists would rather imagine themselves going to heaven through the back window of false doctrine than through the front door of scriptures. They go for any religious innovations that will not involve giving up human lusts for the light yoke of Christ. They leave Egypt with an immediate expectation to enter Canaan. They will not entertain any wilderness in between. They want the privileges of the gospel, but hate any of its obligations. They hate the cross, but love the crown. But their very attitude shakes them out in the wilderness of wanderings. Read 1 Corinthians 10 verse 1 right to verse 13. Their flesh is scattered in the wilderness between Egypt and Canaan. They lose both worlds. They lose Egypt and lose Canaan. Being religious, they are not good enough for this world. And being unconverted, they are unfit for the next. They are lost to the present world and the world to come. They eventually descend to hell that they dreaded, but by the painful path that passes next to the pulpit. On the high road to hell, their hearts have to press back the pricks of an awakened conscience and the prickly voice of the preacher declaring, turn ye from your evil ways, for why will ye die, O house of Israel? That is Ezekiel chapter 33 verse 11. Their feet themselves are torn and bleeding through the thorns that providence places on the downward road to hell, to make it as hard as possible for the sinner to lose himself, and which their bare and bleeding feet have to press down to be successfully lost. The wilderness wanderings are decidedly the Christian's journey to heaven. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. Again, Isaiah 48 verse 10. Now all these things happened unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape, that ye may be able to bear it. That is 1 Corinthians 10, verse 11 to 13. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. That is 1 Corinthians 10, verse 6. What the Bible here and elsewhere calls lust was the inordinate desire for flesh, when at this point God had restrained its use. The Bible generally uses the word lust to refer to any legitimate natural desires employed unlawfully, or used in violation of conscience, reason, or faith in God. That's why this chapter says towards the end, that whether therefore ye eat or drink, or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. That is 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31. A true Christian will not desire anything that they cannot form into a prayer. Paul says that whatsoever is not of faith is sin. That is Romans 14 verse 23. From Egypt to Canaan, from bondage to freedom, from want to abundance, from earth to heaven.